Hey everyone, for this learning target we're going to learn about the cell or plasma membrane. This is learning target 2.3 for Southeastern High School's biology class. So by the end of this we hope that you can explain the role of the cell membrane in cell protection and in maintaining homeostasis. Alright, so the first thing that we have to talk about is what's the point of the cell membrane? So this is sometimes called the plasma membrane, which is referring to kind of this loose gel-like substance that is around the outside of our cells, and so it's kind of like this plasma, plasticky, stretchy stuff. It's actually made out of fat cells. So the main function of the cell membrane is to allow certain substances in and out of the cell. It should be and out of the cell. So some substances on the outside can get in, some substances on the inside can get out, but the cell membrane regulates that. It decides what gets in and gets out. So it's made of two layers of lipids, which are also known as fats, called the phospholipid bilayer. So we have a layer of fats on the bottom, layer of fats on the top, and that actually goes all the way around a cell. And so we put those two together and it's called a phospholipid bilayer. Main thing you need to know is that they're made out of fats. So when we say lipids in biology, we're actually talking about fats. So these little heads here are fat. Alright, so only, as we said before, it's a semi-permeable membrane, meaning that only some substances can pass in and out of the cell. So permeable means like you can pass through something, but semi means half. So it's only you're only partially able to pass things in and out of the cell. So as this picture shows here, we have these potassium molecules are able to pass out of the cell, and here actually this trades potassium in for sodium out, and this allows sodium in. So these different proteins, there are different proteins which allow small molecules to pass in and out of the cell. So there are these proteins inside of, you can see embedded in the layer. So this is the phospholipid bilayer again, the outside and the inside of the cell. And we have molecules passing in or out of and into the cell. And it's up to these pathways to allow that to happen. So it's kind of like, if you haven't thought about this already, it's kind of like a house. If you think of the cell like a house, well, the cell membrane is basically like the walls. And so it's going to do different things that a house would do. So we're going to talk about the cell membrane as if it were like a house. So the first thing is a house has walls. Well, the cell has the plasma membrane, which keeps the inside of the cell safe from the outside. So just like your house has walls, it keeps your house warm or cold, and it prevents unwanted things from entering. So the cell has a cell membrane which does the same thing. Alright, now just like your house, the cell has doors. So a cell has these things called protein channels, which allow only certain molecules to come and go. Alright, so when we're talking about a channel, we're talking about like a pathway. So only, like we said before, only certain molecules can come and go. So think of these like little doors in the house that allow the molecules in and out. Alright, and that's all part of the membrane. Alright, now a house also has utility pipes. So a cell has certain protein channels which allow water, energy, and waste to pass in or out. So just like you would take out the trash, or just like you would have water piped into your house, or energy like gas and electricity piped into your house, there are also certain channels, certain places on the cell that allow that to be passed into the cell. So it's very particular as to what it lets in. Alright. Now, also a house has locks. So these cell proteins will not allow unwanted molecules to enter the cell. Only molecules that fit a certain size and shape may enter. So, just like in your house where only certain people are allowed to come in if they have the key, Just like that, in the cell membrane, only certain molecules or pieces are allowed in and out of the cell if they fit correctly. If they don't fit correctly, they don't have the key and they can't get in. Alright, so that's how a cell is like a house. Now we're going to move on to how it maintains this thing called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a big word. We're going to break it down into two parts. Homeo means the same. Stasis means state. So same state. So homeostasis occurs when the cell keeps the same internal environment. This means the cell stays healthy by keeping the level of energy, water, and temperature the same. So just like you keep your internal conditions the same, just like your body does that, you can do that because of your cells. So your cells regulate how much energy stays in or out of the cell. Your cells regulate how much water are in your cells. Your cells also regulate the temperature. And we couldn't do any of that if we didn't have basically the walls or the outside of the cell called the cell membrane. If it wasn't for the cell membrane, we couldn't keep everything in order. So it's a very important part of the cell. Okay, so here's an example of homeostasis. In this example of homeostasis, the cell is keeping more potassium inside of the cell and sodium outside of the cell. And the protein channel and cell membrane make this happen. So the cell says, I want to have more potassium inside and more sodium outside, so I'm going to push certain molecules outside of the cell. Right, and it creates kind of this difference between what's in the inside and what's on the outside of the cell. And that's all because of this semi-permeable membrane. Doesn't allow certain things through except if they go through the certain door, if they have the certain lock to get, or certain key to get through the lock. So that is homeostasis. That is how your cell protects itself and maintains the same conditions. So that's it. That's all we need to know for cell membranes, or also known as plasma membranes.